Well, welcome to TFP Weekend. I'm your host, Jaden Jefferson. I'm right now joined by Emily Desmond, who in the last week just declared that she's running for Toledo City Council. You work for a local nonprofit, and so why did you want to make the jump into local politics?
Yes, I've been thinking about making a political run for quite a while. I would consider myself a community member and a advocate for my community, and I've been doing that for as long as I can remember. But running a campaign has always been in the back of my mind, and I'm building up to it. And when an opportunity presented itself recently, I decided to put my hat in the ring.
And this certainly is a crowded race for Toledo City Council, these at-large seats. And so why did you decide to make the jump?
Just with that opportunity opening up, it was the plan to run in the next 4 years for when something opened up. And do it kind of by the book, so to speak. But when this opportunity arose, I wanted to put my name in there and get some recognition and not be a first-time candidate for the next 4 years. So that's worked out okay for me.
So you mentioned that you've been considering a run for some time now. And so what were some of the different issues that kind of pushed you in this direction?
Yeah, so housing's a huge one for me. In the spaces that I'm in and in my neighborhood in the Old West End, neighbors and community members are afraid of getting priced out of their apartments and their homes. And I myself am a tenant. I don't own a home outright. At this point, I don't know if I ever will. I don't know if I'll ever have enough financial security to do that. So keeping rent costs and making Toledo a renter-tenant friendly city is important to me. And I know a lot of renters who have a lot of pride in our city, including myself, right? And we're not going anywhere, and we shouldn't be priced out. So that's a huge one. But I also want to help people become, including myself, advocating for myself to become homeowners should we want to be.
For sure. And looking at the issue of housing, what are some policies on city council that, if elected, you would want to tackle or implement?
Yeah, I mean, so there's some really great ones that city council has already led. The right to counsel is a huge one. That's where a tenant has the right to an attorney in eviction or housing court, because the results that sorry, can I start that one over?
Sure.
The right to counsel program is a huge win for Toledo because it evens out the playing field for renters when they're having to go to eviction court against their landlords. Usually landlords have the financial means to have a lawyer represent them, but the tenant often does not. And so that program evens that out for them. It's a really great one. There is a pay to stay ordinances are pretty popular, and in cities like Toledo and Dayton and Cleveland, and those are where if you can come up with the rent money after you've been filed with an eviction notice, that if you can pay to stay there, you can stay in place. So that's huge too. So any kind of like renters' rights like that. Another one that I'd like to see is a more common way for renters to organize around the conditions that they're living in, because something that's very concerning right now are these out-of-state property owners and property owners and building owners and managers who are from not our community, really kicking people out, keeping the conditions, the deplorable conditions that they're living in, non-working faucets, no water or dripping water, peeling paint, really atrocious living conditions that you can put your rent into escrow if you're experiencing those things. But they're just like getting these people out, and I think it's to eventually sell these properties, turn them around, flip them around, and put up the price out people who have been living here on more like controlled rent prices or smaller prices. So I don't like that, and I want to see more and more collective action with these renters coming together under unions. And I want to see that citywide, not just from one building, but this is happening in one place. It could happen in another, and those should all collectively come together to be stronger.
And the issue you bring up is a lack of accountability, because these companies aren't exactly responsive to anyone. You would think you would be responsive to the people that are renting from them, but obviously that isn't the case. And so what role should the city of Toledo, in your eyes, play in holding these companies and these managers accountable?
They shouldn't be allowed in our city. That's what I think. We should be getting rid of them. They're not welcome here. Just because they're buying up buildings because they have enough money to do so does not mean that they're our ticket to better financial security here in Toledo, right? So they shouldn't be welcome. They are bottom feeders. They are not helping our city. They're worsening it for us.
So what should be the process then? So if a company comes to Toledo and says that they want to own a property, is there a certain vetting process they should go through, and what should that process entail?
I would want to talk to some legal minds about that. I myself am just a person with some ideas about what needs to happen, but I am a collaborator through and through. And so I would ask the folks who know more about that side of things to what the process would be. I can bring the ideas forward and then get the right people in place to put it in action.
Yeah, and just taking a look at some of the other issues that the city of Toledo is facing, one in particular, it's been a long-term problem, population stagnation, and not only that, population decline. Mm-hmm. And so given that this city has kind of been driving people away, are there some policy priorities that you have that could potentially turn that around?
Yeah, so I like to call myself a Toledo ambassador. And what I mean by that is I love this city. I have been a cheerleader and an ambassador for the city of Toledo since I moved here in 2009. And I've seen a lot of revitalization efforts. I've seen a lot of local businesses come through, artists livening up our walls, larger businesses coming in and supporting job creation, and this idea of diversifying our funding and making sure that Toledo meets everybody's needs, right? And so as an ambassador, I want to talk to people about what's preventing you from moving to Toledo. Is it a safety issue? Is it because there's no jobs here, no opportunities? Is it because you don't feel welcomed here? Is it because you had a bad experience here? What is it? I want to better understand. So in my ambassadorship, I talk to people. I hear them. I share their stories. And then I work with them to figure out how we can change that, make Toledo for everyone. So I've been doing that for well over a decade. And I've been helping people and encouraging people to move or visit Toledo or invest in Toledo on a very granular scale, through art projects that I do, through a magazine that I publish. I just connect the dots wherever they may be and then invite the person in and see what we can do to keep them here. And I'll give you a quick example. And this didn't happen the way I planned to. But I have a friend who produces my magazine with me. And it's called Swell Magazine. And it is a arts and literature magazine that is produced out of Toledo, but has a global impact. We have participants from all over the world who participate in it and submit to it. But it is a Toledo export because we make everything here. And so when I started working with my magazine partner, Laura, She didn't live in Toledo. She lived in upstate New York. And through us wanting to put this project together, she ended up moving here. And now we're able to do it and make it, like I said, that Toledo export. And it's pretty amazing, all that's come out of that, all the local businesses that want to support it now, all the local artists who want to be a part of it. For that work, I recently received an award from the Toledo Press Club calling me an emerging star in journalism. I've been in journalism for 17 years. But I'm finally emerging as that because all the hard work that I've put into my ambassadorship of Toledo is kind of shown in this little magazine.
Yeah, and I really do want to take a little sidebar here and talk about Swell, because I think that this was something that we were looking to discuss even prior to you announcing your run for Toledo City Council, but just kind of discuss what Swell covers and how it's different from maybe other publications that exist in the area.
Yeah, so Swell is a real multimedia thing. It's I don't know how to describe it. Sometimes it delights all five senses. It's kind of, when I talk about it, I'm like, I want this magazine to not just be something that you read and can pick up and tangibly feel, but I want it to be something that you hear. I want it to be something that you feel, something that you can taste. So you might see recipes in it. You might see QR codes that go to a playlist on Spotify so that you can hear what the artist, when they were creating the pieces, this is the music that inspired them behind the piece or something like that. There's just all kinds of ways that you can engage in this magazine. So it's really made by creatives. I started the concept in COVID. During lockdown, and a lot of people found themselves without jobs, not knowing where they were going to go next, and kind of sheltering in place, right? And I had been running my own freelance marketing business for a while. I had launched a freelance marketing business in 2011 called Social B Media, and it was mostly social media help, PR and social media guidance with artists, local businesses, nonprofits, political candidates, anybody who needed that kind of assistance. And we would do social media campaigns. I would do PR pushes. We kind of know how to get the word out about things, right? And that was just me. It was just me running that. And then I switched from Social B Media to Social B Creative. And that was when I started working with other creatives that I had worked with in other jobs that I've had. So I had graphic designers, videographers, other content creators, photographers, anybody that you would see in a marketing or digital type of agency. And we would create campaigns for our different clients. And that's what we were doing in COVID and getting people paid to do that. Well, Swell was a way to get creative and kind of show off what we could do. And so it's a lot of those folks that started with a lot of those folks who had this media experience, but they were also artists on the side or storytellers on the side. So it's a little bit of journalism. It's a little bit of visual storytelling. It's a little bit of podcasting and video work, all wrapped into a like 76 page beautiful book that you can put on your coffee table and can start like conversations around.
So how would you say this magazine plays a role in telling Toledo's story? Because we often hear some of the similar things or the same things repeated in other forms of media. Would you say it's filling a gap in maybe Toledo's story that hasn't been filled by other forms of media?
Absolutely. I think the reason why people are so drawn to Swell is that it's offering them an opportunity to tell their story where they might have been rejected before. So a lot of I don't want to call them rejects because my people are not rejects. They're misunderstood or just haven't been able to break through in this small town mindedness that we sometimes feel here. And so if they haven't felt like they've been treated right by the powers that be, they don't feel welcome. They don't feel like they're a part of that community. And I have provided with Swell a little bit of a community that they can feel welcomed in. And a lot of times that's other women in the business. A lot of times it's minority groups. I have contributors who just have historically been silenced, and now they have a way to get their message across, and in whatever way that is, whether that's in writing or by a picture or a painting or whatever their medium is. If again, they want to share a recipe or they want to share a play script or anything like that, we publish it and we don't edit it. If it fits our theme and fits our mission and you're not problematic, you're welcome to join us.
Yeah. And obviously, Toledo, you mentioned kind of this small town mindedness and the way that Toledo kind of shrinks itself, despite the fact that this is a medium American city that is similar to other large cities in this country. And so what would you say needs to change in terms of the way Toledoans view their city in order to get the ball rolling on those other issues that we've discussed thus far?
I like this topic of Toledo really is for everyone. And I know that that's like what one of my favorite nonprofits here is the Ability Center, and they have the Toledo is for everyone slogan. And that's another group, by the way, that is prominently featured in Swell, or people with different abilities, we'll say. And Toledo is for everyone. And we need to welcome people when they want to be invested in Toledo. If they're really showing that they care and they're telling you their reasons for maybe being frustrated with with what's going on, you need to listen to them, because otherwise they're just going to move away. But if they're showing that they have a vested interest in what's happening around them, welcome them in, and let's make this a place for everybody, because it is. I have found personally that "You will do better in Toledo" slogan to ring true. I wear that shirt very proudly. And that's why I haven't moved away. Why I stayed after college, after getting my journalism degree from Bowling Green State University in 2008. I have done better here for myself, but not everybody has. And so those folks kind of, when you put yourself out there as an ambassador, or someone who's a safe person and someone who has like found some general success in this city, people reach out to you about that, and they feel that, and they want that too. I think you could probably relate to that, right? You've done that at a very young age, and people have been coming and you've helped them tell their stories where maybe someone before that didn't feel like anyone would listen.
Sure.
So I think there needs to be more of that, more connectors and storytellers and people who know how to get the word out so that there's a space for everybody here.
For sure. And looking at Toledo's story, I mean, it's definitely one that isn't linear. There have been good moments in Toledo. There have been bad moments. And so in terms of entering the race for Toledo City Council, what have been some of the other things that have been on your mind? Some of those experiences that people have shared with you, and some of those things you've experienced personally that you aim to bring with you into political life, where you can kind of change those things for the better.
Yeah. So there's so much to be frustrated about right now, Jaden. That's not a happy time. And I wasn't going to do this roller coaster ride that I'm so often associated with. People will often say, having a conversation with you, Emily, is like being on a roller coaster ride. And it isn't a little bit, because I can start up here and we can be having a great time, and all of a sudden I can bring it down. I'm about to bring it down.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. So the state of affairs right now is just not good. From a national level, it's a mess. All of our systems are being threatened. The government's being dismantled from the inside out. And it's very scary. And we're seeing that trickle into our state politics and our local politics. And I can't fix what they're doing federally. I can't stop this government from doing what they're doing. I'm just one person and I can't do that. I can go and I can participate in my protests and I can share how disgruntled I am about the state of affairs, but I can't stop that. What I can do is I have a mission-driven purpose to make positive changes in the community in which I live. And Toledo is that community. And so my promise is to take every bit of strength that I have left, every bit of resolve that I have left, every connection that I have made, and try to fix it so that people aren't losing their homes, so that people are getting the right medicine, so that if you experience something life-changing, your whole world doesn't fall apart. Because these are things that can happen. They can happen to anyone. At the same time, I'm going to get real low. The same time that I was producing Swell in 2020 and 2021, I got the worst phone call of my life. I got a call from my father on March 9th, 2020. And that phone call was my dad telling me that my cousin had been murdered by her husband. And then he shot himself. And I had always been a domestic violence advocate. I had known other people who have lost loved ones to such unimaginable violence. But it was the first time that someone that I knew personally my first best friend that I ever had was a victim. And it was just terrible. I won't go into all the gory details of that, but it was awful. I wouldn't wish that upon anybody. But I didn't have the luxury of being sad or weak or even mourn it. I had to go down to Kentucky where this happened. And I had to be strong for my family. And since I'm a writer and pretty eloquent in my words, I had to deliver a eulogy. And from that point on, I just realized this inner strength and resilience that I had, that in my darkest, most difficult, most personal moments that shake you, they test those things. They test how strong you are. They test if this is gonna make or break you. And it made me. It made me much stronger than I ever thought I would be. Now, did I have my moments of not being so strong? Yeah. Do those moments catch up with me on any given day? Yeah. But I had that experience, and that and many other experiences that I've had, because there have been a lot in my 40 years on this earth, make me incredibly empathetic, incredibly able to put myself in pretty much anybody's shoes. And if I share my story with you or with them, they usually reciprocate. If they feel the authenticity, if they don't want to hear it, they don't want to hear it. But if they're willing to hear it, it opens themselves up to telling me what they've been through. And that's a real gift that I offer. I think I've lost the plot with the question that you've asked. So I don't know. I think that we need to bring more empathy into government. I think we need to bring all of our skill sets that we can. We need to draw from our strengths that might be seen as weaknesses. And I'm willing to put myself out there for that.
Well, and I want to go back to what you said. You said you were one person and that you see what's happening nationally and on the state level, and that obviously that can make a person feel small. We had a conversation before the interview about diversification, and I promise that this is correlated because you mentioned that Toledo is a city that is reliant upon the support of others. It's a city that needs, grants to help fund things that it wants to do. It needs the support in some cases of corporate partners in order to get things done. Toledo has really seen a lot of the effects of what happens nationally when grants may be endangered or corporations may pull out due to financial issues. Mm-hmm. And so to make Toledo a city that can support itself, where do you start there? Because Toledo, in a way, is something that's represented as small. Toledo doesn't have all the backing that it may need.
You start with the people. You start with the ones who have been here, who have stuck through the ups and downs, the recessions, the natural disasters. That you stick with the folks in the community, the community groups who have stuck around and know what they want and make their their neighborhoods better and the groups in which they are part of better. And we lift all of those together. We connect them. Nobody's an island. Nobody's doing this alone. But Toledo has this kind of gritty underdog. We protect ourselves and our people that we care about. But we need to widen that. We need to make it so that we're all Toledoans together. I mean, we've seen this in some other more Rust Belt cities. Detroit.
It's making a comeback.
Detroit's making a huge comeback. And we're not far from Detroit. In fact, we are called Little Detroit, right? So we could learn a lot from what they're doing in Detroit. My hometown of Cincinnati is also on a resurgence. I don't go back there as much as I like to, but when I do visit, the places that I go now were not safe when I was a child. There was a curfew in the 90s in downtown Cincinnati due to violence and gang violence and rioting. And that was happening a lot. But now there's a waterfront park. There's too many brunch places to name, you know? And whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I'll leave that for people to decide. I think, it's good to have options, but let's diversify that too, right? And so what I'd like to see is a combination of, if we're making this for everyone, we want it to be for the people who have the resources and want to invest and want to use their money to make the community better. That's great. But we also want to keep the people who might not have the financial means to support a city. Maybe they can do it through their artistic talents. Maybe they can do it through some ideas that they have based on their personal experiences. Having only been on the campaign trail for a week, I have talked to hundreds of people already about this in the various events and people just kind of popping out in my neighborhood, or if I'm in an Uber and I'm talking to the Uber driver about what their needs are, whoever I'm meeting. I ask them questions about, do they like living in Toledo? What's keeping them in Toledo? What do they do? And everybody's got a story. Everybody's got ideas. We need to be talking to those people. That's where it starts. It doesn't start from outside investors. That can be a part of it, but we need to vet those folks too. We don't want another situation where there's some pie in the sky idea that seems too good to be true and they're going to save, the tech industry here in Toledo or something, and then nobody has jobs after that. We don't we don't want that. We gotta properly vet the companies that want to invest in us. Why? Do you want to invest in us because the land's cheap and you can get a building really cheaply here? Are you going to finish renovating that building? Are you going to make that building affordable for the people who live here? Or are you going to price us out? We got to be looking out for everybody because we are only as strong as our most vulnerable community member.
And you provided an example of this happening with Bitwise, which was something that was sold as to be great for the city of Toledo and its tech industry. There was this kind of overwhelming excitement that ended up resulting in a building that was a building that was finished but didn't really go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so would you say that desperation has hurt the city because we've pursued things so often for them to not go anywhere?
So I think that it was a little bit of a catalyst for change. I'm not going to knock it completely because now people are kind of paying attention to that building and what goes in there.
Things are happening
now. Things are happening now. And so it wasn't originally what they thought it was going to be, but we bounced back from it because that's what Toledo does. Because when something like that happens, we don't just give up and say, okay, I guess we have this empty building we were going to have, Bitwise be in, but now we're not going to do nothing with it. The tech community came up in a big way and stepped up, and they have events there and they have a co-working space there, and it'll be interesting to see what happens in the future with that building. That'll definitely be something that, should I get a chance to be to sit on city council, is really talking to these the people who are invested in these spaces and seeing where they're going next and how I can help support that. I'm a huge proponent of the downtown revitalization efforts. I love preserving our historic buildings. I think all of that's really fascinating. And I've kind of been at those on the peripheral of those conversations throughout my professional career. Before ProMedica moved downtown, I worked in their marketing department on Richards Road. And I worked there right up until they had just broken ground on the steam plant and key bank buildings. And I was so excited about that. Because I wanted parties in the park. I wanted music every weekend in Promenade Park. I wanted more small businesses to open up, like Balance Grill, coffee shops like Brew House. Whatever's going on with the Bobcat Bonnie, we're never going to see. All of Fort Industry Square. We'd love to see businesses completely full there. And then whatever the mixed space above, because I believe that there's more businesses and apartments that could be made up there. So that's a big part, the downtown revitalization efforts that I've kind of, have a pulse on, right? Another thing that I have a general ear to is what goes on in the Old West End, because that's a place that I've lived and rented my home from. I've lived in the same home since 2012, and I've had an assortment of roommates throughout that time. Right now, it's just my husband and I, but it's a 4-bedroom arts and crafts style house near a very prominent, artistic, welcoming community. And I host events in that neighborhood. I had last summer, the Free Press covered an event that I hosted on the block that I live on, which was it was food trucks and 3 bands and a tie-dye artist station and me selling my magazines, and it was just a block party.
Yeah.
Right. And there's other people in our communities doing that in different neighborhoods, and we need people like that. We need folks who are just making experiences and welcoming folks. And so I think that's what makes neighborhoods really great. I'd love to see more businesses in my direct neighborhood, but I think there's, as a city council at large member, I think there's every neighborhood wants that.
Sure.
Right?
And one thing I hear from people is that they say downtown is having its revival right now.
What about the other ones?
What about the neighborhoods?
What about the neighborhoods? I'm adamant that we can do that. We can focus on these neighborhoods. If there's people willing to put in the work and they have ideas and they're not just, for lack of a better word, bitching and complaining about government not doing something about it, they got to own up to what they want to do, and then we can help them get where they need to go.
And so given that there is that frustration and that feeling of being left behind, how would you bring community members into the fold? Because being an at-large member of city council, if elected, you would kind of be hearing from everyone and have a responsibility to everyone.
I will say, and I've heard this in other forums too, every person has a district council person, and that is your first line. You go to them when you have a need, right? There's a safety issue or a pothole or those go hand in hand, but
yes.
Whatever it might be, if you have an issue, the first person you should reach out to would be your district council person. If your district council person is not getting back to you in a timely manner, didn't respond to you the way that you would hoped they would, or there's been a history and you're just not getting along and you're kind of over that, then you can come to your at-large people and maybe we can help bring that to the forefront. And then as a final defense, you can go to the mayor. That's kind of the chain of command. But I would hope that it would start and end with your at-large district person.
Yeah. And given that we've talked a lot about housing, economic development, we've talked about swell, what are some of the other things that you would like to prioritize just in this campaign that you're running a pretty short campaign here? So what are some of the other things that have been on your mind lately?
The safety of our community. Everybody's talking about safety. There's violence here. Even in my own neighborhood, there's some areas of the Old West End that you just don't go to in the middle of the night. My neighborhood's predominantly black. I am never scared of my black community members. But there's been altercations. There's gang violence. I don't blame the kids who need programs and investments in them. They need to be listened to. I have a long-standing history of listening to people who don't look like me or have the same experience as me, but that whole idea of being empathetic and people being able to share their stories. I've made documentary films with people who have experienced severe poverty, hunger issues, violent issues, and trying to understand how that came to be. Because when we're born, we're not born violent. We're not born with the intent that we're gonna kill somebody, strangle somebody. I don't think that my cousin's husband came into this world a murderer. And while it's really, really, really hard for me to find any forgiveness there, I don't want another family to have to experience what we went through. So if there's someone who's on the verge of maybe killing their girlfriend or partner or wife, we got to get to them before that happens with prevention, with trauma-informed care. What's causing this person to react violently? Is it something that they learned? Is it how they grew up? It was probably how they grew up. They saw somebody not treating the women in their life with care. And that's all reversible. We can change this. But we have to stop looking at people as criminals and as people again who can be invested in, who are worth being invested in. It's really important to me.
In which you mentioned about youth in our community, we've had this huge infusion of federal dollars from the American Rescue Plan Act. Given that we have those American Rescue Plan Act dollars no longer on the books to support youth programming, which was a significant chunk of where that money went to, how is the city itself going to find the funds to do it? And not only find the funds to do it, but just have the will and desire to do it.
That's going to take all of us coming together and putting our minds together on how we're going to find alternative funding. Because again, you can't just rely on one grant. You don't know when a grant's going to dry up, when it's going to be taken away. We've seen that among the city and all of our nonprofits lately. I mean, we're going to have a real problem here, Jaden. We're already starting to see it. But if you talk to any of your local nonprofits, which I'm sure you have, it all comes down to funding.
Right.
And they don't know what they're going to do. And they're this kind of a moment of despair for everybody. But this is the moment where people who are used to the struggle, this is where we shine. Because we know this. We're comfortable here. It's where people kind of look for folks like a shining light in the darkness kind of thing. And they see something in people who have survived it. I would be remiss to say, don't just like rely on the survivors. You got to make sure that those folks are okay themselves before you put all of your eggs in their basket, because we need help too. We need your understanding. We need your empathy as much as we're giving ours to you. So give us some grace. Understand that our hearts, nobody's going into public service because they want to destroy people's lives. I don't believe that to be the case either. Well, maybe there's one person who decided to step in and ruin an entire country. But aside from that, there's people in public service who come into these jobs because they care, because they want to make a difference, and they are people. They're not, we're humans. We're going to make mistakes. You can hold us accountable. You can hold me accountable. I will own up when I make my mistakes. But let's lift each other up. Let's work together, and let's find solutions to the severe financial impact that we're all going to be experiencing, because it's going to take these nonprofits to come together. Maybe instead of each of us taking our own piece of the pie, we figure out what are our main issues here in Toledo that need to be addressed, and how do we form coalitions and alliances of all these groups and come together. We could be, since Toledo's like so small town, medium-sized city kind of thing, we could get real creative with this, and we could be a national model for how to make this work for us. But that's not just my idea. That's all of us coming together and bringing our strengths to the table and figuring that out.
And so what you're describing is definitely nonprofit to nonprofit partnership. Would you also say that would look like state level potentially having to get involved?
Yes, absolutely. But also, I mentioned the nonprofits because that's kind of the world that I'm in, but it does require government helping, right? Like those two kind of go hand in hand. It requires businesses coming together. I mean, do we live in Toledo because we're forced to live here, or are we here because on our own accord? And if we're here on our own accord and we're invested in it, let's talk to the people who are also invested in it, and let's fix it together.
Well, Emily Desmond, thanks for coming on TFP Weekend.
Thanks for having me, Jaden.
Thank you. I'm Jaden Jefferson, and thanks for joining us as well. I love a wide-ranging conversation. Yeah.